Elizabeth Doran, President and CEO of North Carolina Theater, which has been proudly producing professional theater and education programming for over 36 years. You may know North Carolina Theater through the art we have put together just for you here on our stage in Raleigh. Year after year, we've combined the magic of Broadway performers and creative teams with the vitality of North Carolina's most treasured talent and blossoming young artists. We've surrounded them with professional orchestras, costumes, lights, sets, and sound in beautiful theater venues in the Duke Energy Center for the Performing Arts. About 60,000 people each year come to see our shows. Some have let us know that these shows have surfaced feelings we love to hear about the most: delight, surprise, and pride. Pride that right here in our community, we are creating world-class theater. We are sharing our stories. While protecting our community, audiences, and artists from COVID-19 has meant we cannot perform live theater. Through this series, we'll take a step off the stage and into the audience and community, where we invite them to come all in with us. Together, we will engage with you in the purpose and meaning of the art of theater. We'll take a look at the heart of our work, the great themes behind the stories we tell, and we'll connect them directly to communities right here in Raleigh who are wrestling with these relevant ideas as they work to uplift others and continue to build a great community for all of us. On behalf of North Carolina Theater, welcome to All In, a digital series examining theater through the lens of community, diversity, equity, and inclusion. All In, presented by PNC. All In at North Carolina Theater involves three major strategies. Our main stage and training programs advance diversity, equity, and inclusion by producing culturally relevant main stage shows, which are stitched together under thematic banners as a season. These may be familiar musicals that incorporate diversity in casting, or culturally specific shows that present one particular culture's take on universal themes. A second and equally important strategy is relational. We want to move from the transactional, where folks buy a ticket and we put on a show, to the relational, where we become partners with our local communities and stick together in good times and bad. We aspire to deepen our relationships with all of the communities of our region. To do this right, we must engage in authentic, long-term partnerships with others. We must meet with and learn about the needs, fears, and hopes of communities here, and we need to learn how to become collaborative hosts for their goals and dreams. We do this through free related educational and community programs such as Encore, our post-show discussions with community leaders, needs-based scholarships for our students, action-based partnerships with schools, colleges, and libraries, and in how and where we invest our dollars in this region. Finally, North Carolina Theater is undertaking introspection, examining its overall social impact and learning where, over time, it has supported or impeded equitable access to the arts. This involves working at the board, staff, and community level to consider our history, devising tactics with measurable outcomes, and enacting staff and board training and resources that can help our company deeply understand ideas like systemic racism and help us enable healing within our closest stakeholders. We hope that All In has two specific outcomes. For our local community, All In can provide benefit by providing access, representation, and a voice and platform for communities that have been historically underserved by the professional arts. For North Carolina Theater, All In can help build financial, artistic, and mission-based successes for our company by helping to deepen investment by these communities in North Carolina Theater through the help of vital partners and leaders of communities engaged in our shared future. theater company with years of providing fulfilling entertainment to our community, and we will never stop providing our region with what we know they have come to the theater for: fun and joy. We hope to inspire you with awe at the possibilities of human achievement as these performers come together in song, dance, and compelling storytelling. So why, you might wonder, are we also so passionate about ideas like diversity, equity, and inclusion? Our first reason is that we believe it is our moral and ethical obligation. Our highest company values of humanity and inclusion lead us to support the assertion that equity is a moral imperative, one that it is an arts organization's duty to uphold. We believe an arts organization should reveal and inspire ways to make the world better. While the arts are only one part of a broad solution, artists and arts organizations are in the unique position to express aspirational goals for society through beauty, poetry, music, and more. Additionally, we see a social and economic need for our region to build equitable access to critical community assets, such as cultural assets like theater. After all, multiple studies of diversity have proven it has great economic implications. A data-rich report entitled Equitable Growth Profile of the Triangle Region makes staggeringly clear the economic need for the Triangle to improve its racial equality. The report concluded that the region's economy could have been over $21 billion stronger today if there were no economic differences by race. And finally, we have seen equality, inclusion, diversity, and access achieve the best artistic outcomes. We send out post-show surveys to patrons, and over time we've collected many thousands of responses. Overwhelmingly, we've noticed that respondents list shows where diversity, in subject matter or in casting, has been a component as among the best they report seeing. In their comments, they use words like fresh, appealing, and exciting to describe these shows. For all of these reasons, a moral imperative, great economic implications, and the best artistic outcomes, we hope that together we can go all out to bring all in. Let's get started with our series. Today we're going to focus on a core question and see where it leads us. As Maria would have said in our production of The Sound of Music, had we been able to produce it as planned, let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. We've gathered people from various backgrounds and communities of the Raleigh region together and asked them the basic question, what is the purpose of theater? Here is what they said.
I've had trouble wrapping my head around this idea of what is the purpose of theater. And maybe I'm thinking too critically, but you know, as an actor performer, you don't typically sit around contemplating why you do the things you do, especially for an art form, you know?
I think that there are many purposes to theater. There's not just one, and I think it's almost impossible to narrow it down.
I absolutely love the theater. I can remember growing up where the theater definitely was not a part of our household budget. As a young adult, I finally experienced the theater, and it was everything that I had imagined.
I love theater because the audience is part of the show. Books and movies are a very 2D experience. If I watch a movie 6 times, the movie's going to end the exact same way every time.
You know, that's one thing that I love about theater is that it's so universal and it's so up for interpretation.
But in live theater, anything can happen, and every performance is unique. Different directors and different casts can make every staging of a show feel brand new, even if it's a show that's been around for 50 years.
You know, entertainment is the first purpose that most people would say. And I think that leads to escapism, you know, like enjoying theater because you want to escape.
And it can be so freeing, and it can be a way for the audience members and all the people involved in the show to express themselves in a way that things that aren't theater can't do.
Now, as an educator and department head at Shaw University, one of the oldest HBCUs of the South, I use my platform to encourage and engage students every chance that I get, whether it's educational seminars or internships or co-op opportunities, or even just collaborating, taking students to get up close and personal at some of the events, productions, and projects. I think the exposure is so very important.
But I think that it can also lead to inspiration, and introducing new ideas and controversial topics are some of my favorite theater productions, and that leads to growth.
Theater is somewhere where I can learn how to speak in front of others. It's somewhere where I can learn how to articulate.
I love theater because it makes me feel special and connected to the cast, to the audience, and to my community.
Not only were the people in the audience that looked like me, there were people on the big stage. That's when I really fell in love with the theater. And I realized that all people should experience the performing arts.
The audience, you feel connected to the audience, and the audience feels connected to each other.
And it can be so freeing, and it can be a way for the audience members and all the people involved in the show to express themselves.
I love the theater because the theater makes me feel alive.
Theater is somewhere where I could open doors for myself. It's somewhere where I can gain opportunities. It's somewhere where, despite my background, despite my adversity, it's somewhere where I can grow and be unique in myself.
They may not realize it, but people need the theater to get inspiration, to get education, and most of all, to expose various facets of life. The theater is very necessary.
I also think that theater can and has a responsibility to have people leave the theater thinking and teach people different lessons throughout the show and spark these really, really important conversations that need to be had. And I think for people of all ages, it can introduce them to different communities and different cultures and different types of people and different experiences, and have them just thinking. Just thinking is the most important thing, and hopefully maybe educate some people who came into the theater and didn't think that they were going to see these types of people and didn't think that they were going to learn these lessons.
It's through the applause, the laughter, and the tears that we unify.
The theater has the ability to show us ourselves, show us our history, show us our culture, and even examine some rights and wrongs of society.
I think theater gives you a way to see the world through someone else's eyes. And it's a great way these days to address social issues in a very safe environment and start conversation.
And I think that it can also create this spark in people and make them want to go out into the world and change it for the better and make a difference.
Since I lost my sight, I love the theater even more. It allows me to rely on my imagination, to see the colorful stage, to feel the music within, and to take a deeper dive into the story. Theater forms a community out of people with different backgrounds and life experiences. We need this as a people.
Thanks to all of the participants who helped us answer this core question. I'd like to focus on that part of the purpose of theater that is examining themes that impact our everyday lives, and see if we can join with members of various Raleigh area communities to examine the themes that we have been placing together in our 1920 season. Perhaps more than ever, these themes call out to be examined, whether or not we can do so through our traditional art form. Let's check in with our producing artistic director, Eric Woodall, who can give us insights into these values expressed by shows in his inaugural 1920 season. Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for coming to our All-In Community Conversations. It is incredibly good to see you. I haven't seen you in person in 7 months.
I know, it's amazing. And thank you so much for having me.
Eric, thank you, thank you. We're engaging in a dialogue with our community where we've been taking a look at our seasons and how North Carolina theater serves the community through our art form. And as our producing artistic director, I thought it would be really wonderful to hear from you about the role that you play in our community here at North Carolina Theater, how you serve our local community through the art that you select and direct, and how does that all come together as a season?
Well, thank you for that great question. So many things go into dreaming up a season, especially our 2019-2020 season, because it was my inaugural season here at North Carolina Theater, working with you and everyone, and feeling out what would be the right roster of shows. So as you recall, there were lots of conversations on what feels right. I mean, I approached it from many different angles. Representation of comedy, representation of dance, representation of style of music, style of show, what stories are we telling, who are we representing. Thinking of all those things and trying to figure out a balance that would make for an incredible season. And then once I started with these lists and lists and lists of thinking, what would our audiences like to see? What would challenge our audiences? What would push our audiences forward? It came back to a few reoccurring themes. Family, inclusion, acceptance, and humanity. And that started driving me into some great choices that we were so excited about, and we got to do some of those shows, and some of those shows we did not get to do because of COVID. But the themes are still there, and we put the work into rallying together to support the ideas behind all of these shows. Starting with West Side Story, it was, we were telling the story of two groups coming together. You know, it's an age-old story going back to Romeo and Juliet, two households, both alike in dignity, and such a timely tale to reflect upon, you know, what separates us, what brings us together. And we are living through that. I mean, who knew that we were going to be living through it in such a way that we are right now when we picked the show? But I mean, our production of it actually, you know, by doing the black and white design, we really drove the point home of sometimes all that separates us is just color or the absence thereof. And it was very important that we end that production with an element of hope. Not just saying, this is so sad that we can't come together, but we do have the power to come together. And I still believe that. We believe that. So that took us into another show that also was about two different sides of people. The next show on the main stage was Kinky Boots, and that was about acceptance as well. You know, folks who you wouldn't think would get together and at first are very opposed and suspicious of who's different and you're not gonna like me, so I don't like you, you know, but we just took that and just burst the lid right off of that because it was all about fun and celebration and acceptance. You know, in between there, we had the amazing Having Our Say, which was important to tell because it was about these two incredible ladies who grew up literally in our backyard, you know, and they just were amazing ladies who saw so much history. And they really did have their say. And it was an intimate reflection. It almost felt like this beautiful prayer. And it was important to share that with our audiences. And it felt like it added to a beautiful flavor into this, this great season of so many different tastes. We then had Memphis, which we were all but ready to put up on the stage before we had to shut things down. We were in our rehearsal room. We got to see the whole show. It's just such a shame that we didn't get to share that with our audiences because there again, it was about two groups of people not knowing that they could come together in a way of accepting each other and learning from each other and growing with each other. with the most incredible music, having that rock and roll music. It was musical theater music, but based in the style of rock and roll. Edges is a show that is about being on the edge of something, being on the edge of growth, being on the edge of adulthood. It was something that we were really looking forward to sharing with our millennials, because there were so many songs in there that had to do with overcoming fear. What do we do when we are surrounded with fear? Who do we reach out to? Who helps us get through that? The humanity around surviving fear. And it was a song cycle that was going to be in the very intimate setting in the Fletcher Theater. And it's by the creators of Dear Evan Hansen and The Greatest Showman. And so that's music that is so great to listen to on its own. And we were going to be weaving it together with these great stories. And then the season was ending with The Sound of Music, which of course is a favorite of so many theater goers. However, if you really look underneath The Sound of Music at some of the themes, not to take away from the celebration of just the sheer sound of music, but the themes underneath are about protecting your family, standing up for what you believe in, and ultimately fleeing if you have to. And so there were so many themes in that season that people could relate to, respond to, and draw strength from. So it was a great season to be associated with, and one that I know you and I both are so proud of. And although we weren't able to complete it in the time that we wanted to, I have no doubt that we'll be able to revisit these titles and bring them to life at some point in the near future.
Eric, thank you so much for sharing that. Oh my goodness, you have had such an incredible impact on North Carolina theater and on this community. You've done a beautiful job directing and putting these seasons together. I can't wait to hear about what's next. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the 3 shows that we had to put on pause in this community dialogue, and I look forward to talking more about the future with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
I'd like to now reintroduce you to 3 young people from our North Carolina Theater Conservatory who are going to jump in and act as my co-hosts on our next 3 episodes of All In, as we examine the themes of the remaining shows of the 2020 season that unfortunately were canceled due to the pandemic. Allison, Stefan, and Sarah, welcome to All In. It's great to see you again. Hey, Stefan, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so my name is Stefan Emanuel. I am 17 years old, and this is my 2nd year with the North Carolina Theater Conservatory. I've been doing musical theater since elementary school, and I've been sticking with this so far. I do hope to pursue it semi-professionally, definitely collegiately, and yeah, it's definitely one of my greatest passions.
Fantastic. Stefan, tell us about the show that you've chosen to co-host with us.
Absolutely. Shows like Memphis, I hold to heart, especially as a Black boy in theater. It is very important to me that Black stories and just storytelling by Black artists is being done, and it is being done in places like North Carolina Theater, where we have so many patrons who are able to, invest in Black stories, essentially, and invest in Black actors, invest in Black people behind the table. It definitely is just a sense of being able to be seen and representation within the theater, which is very important to me.
Allison, you're up. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name's Allison Staples. I've been a conservatory student for 3 years now, and it is my dream to pursue musical theater professionally, and that is the path I'm on currently.
Fantastic. Tell us about the show that you've selected and what made you interested in it.
I was excited to explore Edges because I feel like the themes can really relate back to anyone and anywhere at any time, and especially during this time, of this pandemic and everything going on, and the idea of being on the edge of change, and our society is on the edge of change right now. So I just think that it's really interesting and relevant.
Thanks, Allison. Fantastic. Sarah, nice to see you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Sarah.
My name is Sarah Bach. I'm 14 years old, and I've been going to the conservatory and doing pre-professional training for about a year now.
Great. Sarah, you've selected The Sound of Music. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Sound of Music has been always a part of my childhood, and it's very nostalgic for me because I would always go over to my grandma's and watch it with her. And I also feel like people don't really dive into the themes of The Sound of Music since it is an older show, so people just watch it and they listen to it and they just think about, the movie and Julie Andrews and all that stuff. But I think that it has really cool themes and a really cool story that would be really cool to talk about, and all the immigrants and refugees that live in the Triangle area. I think it'd be really cool to talk to them and hear their experiences, especially with music.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. Oh my goodness, I look forward to seeing all of you guys again and going through these episodes together. Thanks, everybody. Stefan, Allison, Sarah, and I will use the framework of Eric's inaugural season to highlight, partner with, and learn from communities we'd planned to engage with for the 3 shows we were forced to cancel due to COVID-19. Production of these shows was halted, but they remain within us and will now become the point of our compass for this series, which will set us off on our exploration through some virtual dialogue with leaders in our audience, industry, and community. Our next episode will focus on Memphis the Musical, which Stefan will be co-hosting with me. Let's let Stefan give us some insight on our next episode.
The first show we will be diving into is Tony and Olivier Award-winning Memphis. Inspired by actual events, Memphis follows the story of a white radio DJ, Huey Calhoun, who wants to change the world, and a black club singer, Felicia Farrell, waiting for her big break. Huey and Felicia are brought together through the universal power of music to discover that we have more that binds us than separates us. What brings Memphis to life is the music that speaks directly to the heart and our humanity. In Memphis, music acts as a way in which the characters are able to celebrate, relate with one another, and also express themselves and vocalize their troubles and tribulations. For example, when Felicia sings Colored Woman. In songs like Colored Woman, we as audience members are able to hear Felicia express her sorrows of having to internalize the racially charged conflicts pinned against her. With characters like Huey, we are able to further empathize with her through music. The story of Memphis is just one example of many throughout history where music has served as a catalyst to bring people together, while even serving as a form of protest. From Woody Guthrie's This Land Is Your Land to Sam Cooke's A Change Is Gonna Come, and to Macklemore's Same Love, music has expressed pain and hope in important times in our country's history. What is beautiful about music is that even in protest, it is an expression of joy. Today, it is even more important to understand that Black joy is a form of resistance in itself. While Memphis took place in the 1950s, a lot of the themes are just as prevalent today. In this series, through our ongoing partnership with Shaw University, I will look forward to speaking with members of our community who use music as a catalyst for change. We will discuss and explore how music has the power to excite, to empower, to express joy, and ultimately to change the world.
Thank you, Stefan. Looking forward to it. Next, Allison will share a bit about the episode she'll be co-hosting surrounding the next show, Edges.
Edges was written when Benj Pasek and Justin Paul were in school at the University of Michigan. The musical is a song cycle, which means that the story unfolds through the connectiveness of the songs and without dialogue or a traditional storyline. Instead, the story is told as songs evoke a feeling of being on the edge of love or heartbreak, new experiences, simply put, on the edge of life beginning. Edges ask the question, who am I and what do I want to become? As a junior in high school, these are questions I'm confronted with often. However, I can see that these questions can easily translate to what's going on in the world and our society in these very uncertain times. The pandemic has forced us to slow down and sometimes even stop. When we look at beginning again for the first time in our generation, we are collectively at the edge of a new beginning. In the song Become, the characters ask, "Do I want to grow?" That's a question I asked myself as a teenager. What does it mean to be a grown-up? Are we all just big kids? However, it's a question we can ask right now. During this time of change, I imagine that many of us are asking ourselves, what's next? And with that universal question about the unknown and teetering on the edge, fear creeps in, both in the musical and today during this crisis. What this musical asks, that we also ask ourselves today, is how we can overcome and not succumb to that fear. During this episode of the series, we will explore what are we on the edge of. During this time of incredible change for everyone in our community, what's next? I'll be speaking with young people, local influencers, and experimenters as we reflect on this question together. What makes Edges so powerful is its use of multiple level harmonies as each reflection through song occurs. Inspired by this, we'll talk about how unity and working together will play a part in how we emerge on the other side of this crisis that has forced us physically apart, but has pushed us socially forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. Sarah will be finishing up this part of our series with a conversation on the themes of the sound of music. Tell us what you've got cooking, Sarah.
Next, we will turn to the classic musical, The Sound of Music, which is beloved by many as a heartwarming story of family and the power of unity through music. It is also the story of a family who had to make the heartbreaking decision to leave a country they love. At the very start of the show, we see Maria leave the safe haven of the convent and find home with the Von Trapp family. From the beginning, music brings the family closer, ultimately healing a family that had been distant and fractured from the pain and loss. As the story unfolds, music continues to unite the family, even as they face loss again as they flee their country. The last image that we see in the musical is the Von Trapps leaving their home, traveling through the Alps. In many ways, The Sound of Music ends where it could begin, seeing the family as they move bravely on. The family is escaping their homeland for the hope of a safer life. Underscored by beautiful music, the story also explores themes of immigration and refugees and how music can express love of a country, even as it must be left behind. In their final act before they flee, the family sings Edelweiss, which is a love song to Austria. Edelweiss is a small white flower found high up in the Alps, which can withstand the harsh winters and extreme temperatures. The flower symbolizes courage, bravery, and love, everything the Von Trapps embody. This song is a loving and heartbreaking farewell for the Von Trapps as they begin to escape from the country they love. Our country today is one built on being a refuge for those seeking a safer life. A country that is made stronger and more beautiful with all the music and joy and culture that immigrants bring to our shores. As we explore the sound of music, we will also explore how much richer our country becomes when we embrace those who join us with open arms. I'll be looking forward to having a conversation with people in our Triangle region who embody this, immigrants who may have felt compelled to leave the country they loved, but who, through music, have held on to things they loved about their homeland and make connections with people here in their new country.
Thanks, Sarah. I look forward to working with all three of you as we go all out to bring all in. We hope the result of connecting our thoughtful and inspiring young people with leaders in our community around values and ideas generated by these three shows will be dynamic and engaging and can be of value to the participants and hopefully inspire you. In fact, to close out this digital series, we're going to bring Stefan, Allison, and Sarah back with a group of their peers and some of our teaching artists from the North Carolina Theater Conservatory to talk over what they've learned from these episodes. Rounding out the series, we'll ask a new question. Now that we've heard from patrons, students, and community members, what is the purpose of theater? We'll ask these young people, what might be different or the same about the purpose of theater in a post-COVID world? Thanks for joining us today. It has been our pleasure to bring you the very best in professional theater for the past 36 years. Now, as we are forced to pause and in many ways adapt and evolve as a theater company, we are deeply grateful to all of the people who make up this great region and who make it possible for North Carolina theater to exist, to entertain, to teach, to enrich, and hopefully to always bring people together. I'm Elizabeth Doran, President and CEO of North Carolina Theater, and I thank you for coming all in with us and wish you great happiness and health. Until next time, be well.